So let's try out the auto scaling group, but first I want to go to my EC2 instances and want to make sure I terminate my first and my second server. This way we will have no EC2 instances running in our account, and our load balancer will currently sending traffic to nowhere. Next, we're going to auto scaling groups. So on the left hand side, you scroll all the way down and you go to auto scaling groups. And I'm going to try the new design. This way this video will be updated on the UI. Okay, so we are going to create an Amazon auto scaling group. So for this, I'll click on create the auto scaling group, and for the name, I will call it demo ASG. Then we need to create a launch template. So for this, we need to create how and define how the EC2 instances are going to be created. And currently there's no launch templates. So I click on this opens a new tab, and this will help me create a launch template. I'll call it my templates. And then I will be able to just define how it works. So I'm just going to scroll down. We need to select an AMI. So we'll choose Amazon Linux 2, the first one. And I will scroll down. The instance type, I'm going to have it as a T2 micro to remain within the free tier. So T2 micro is free tier eligible. This is great. For the key pair, I'm going to use the EC2 tutorial key pair. For the VPC settings, I'm going to select VPC, and the security group, I'm going to choose the launch wizard one from before. This is great. Scroll down, we'll use the same root volume here. This is good. The tags, I don't need to have any tags right now. Network interfaces as well. And for advanced details, I'm going to scroll all the way down and I will find the user data, and I'm going to take all this, copy it. So I will copy it and then I will paste it in here and click on create launch template. So as you see, this launch template that we just created looks a lot that with all the settings we had when we were creating an EC2 instance in the first place. Okay, so these are the exact same settings, but now this actually did not launch any instance. This created a template to launch an instance, and we're going to use the template into the auto scaling group. This way, the auto scaling group will know how to create instances for us. So I click on refresh here, and now I can select my templates of version 1, and we can review the settings here. So a T2 micro, this is using the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. And then security group IDs is referencing my launch wizard one. So this is good. And we'll click on next. We'll adhere to the launch templates. We'll make it simple. And then for the subnets, we want to make sure our auto scaling group is highly available. So for this, I'm going to select subnets corresponding to the 3 different availability zones. So EU West 1A, 1B, and 1C. Click on next. Now we have a highly available auto scaling group. And yes, we want to enable load balancing. This is the whole purpose of this lecture, but this is optional, obviously. And I will choose a target group that I've created from before, so demo TG. Scroll down, and the health checks. Do we want health checks? Yes, I want an ELB health check. So that means that if my load balancer detects that my instances are unhealthy, then my ASG will also understand that my instances are unhealthy and they will be replaced. Okay. And I will click on next. For the group size, this is where you can define how it scales. So the desired capacity is going to be 2, the minimum capacity is going to be 1, and the maximum is going to be 4. And this will have the effect to have 2 instances launched by default by my auto scaling group. And then you can define a scaling policy. So it's called an auto scaling group because it can scale automatically. So if you set none, you have to scale it manually. So you can dynamically resize your auto scaling group by changing the desired capacity. But if you wanted this to happen automatically, you could select a target tracking policy. And for example, say that you want a metric, one of these metrics, to be around a target value. So in this example, we want the average CPU utilization to be around 50. Or you want to be the number of requests per target group to be around 50. If you get more than 50 requests per second, then launch new instances. So it's up to you to choose the metric you want, CPU, networking, network out, and so on. For now, I won't demo the auto scaling part of the auto scaling group because this is out of scope of this course. I will just show you the fact that we can scale manually using the desired capacity. And this will be enough for you to understand how this works. Okay, finally, we don't need to have scaling protection. So I'll just click on next, and I'll click on next, and I'll click on next, and finally we're good to go. So I'm going to create the auto scaling group, and let's see what happens. So our ASG is being created. And if you look at it, it's referencing our launch template that's here, and the desired capacity is 2, the min is 1, and the max is 4. And it's around it's across 3 different availability zones. So if we look at this, I'm going to have this in full screen. So on the details tab, you can review all the settings, but the interesting tab we have to look at is the instance management tab. So as we can see, 2 instances were created automatically, and we have a link directly to these instance IDs. They are in service. The type is T2 micro, and we can see how they were launched in here. We can also look at the availability zones, and as we can see, one was created in EU West 1C and one is in EU West 1B, and they're both healthy. So that means that they are working and that the load balancer made sure that they were successfully working. It means healthy. So if we go back to our EC2 Management Console and go to instances on the left-hand side, we now see 2 instances running at the same time. And if I go into my target group on the left-hand side, we want to make sure that my instances have been registered successfully for the target group. And so if I click on targets, we can see that yes, both instances have been registered automatically and they're both healthy. So that means that if I go to my load balancer and I try to open it up, so I'm going to have this and open it up, then I get the hello world, and if I refresh, the IP changes. So that means that my auto scaling group is fully functioning and all good to go. If it doesn't work for you, check your security groups, check everything I've done in this video, and try again. But the idea here is that 2 instances were created automatically, and they're both registered under my application load balancer. So let's look at the power of auto scaling groups. Say I go ahead and terminate one of these EC2 instances. So I'm going to take this one and say, you know what, I don't want it. It's not working great. I'm going to terminate it. So now my instance is shutting down, okay? But what will happen is that our auto scaling group still has a desired capacity of 2. So currently it's 2, but after the instance is terminated, the actual capacity of my auto scaling group is going to be 1. And therefore, what will happen is that when the auto scaling group will detect the fact that my previous EC2 instance has been terminated, it will go ahead and create a new instance to match the desired capacity. You can notice this if you go to activity notification. So I'll just pause the video to show you. Okay, so now I'm scrolling down on the activity panel and we have the activity history, and we can look at everything that happened from the very start of our auto scaling group. So we had created 2 EC2 instances. This is when the desired capacity went from 0 to 2. Then we did terminate an EC2 instance because we did it manually. And so the capacity went to 1. And then a new EC2 instance was successfully created because the auto scaling group wanted to increase the capacity from 1 to 2. So if I go back in here, even though I terminated this one, okay, there's 1 terminated. If I refresh this, I'm going to have 2 running. So 1 EC2 instance was provisioned automatically as a replacement by the auto scaling group. So we are resistant to failures. And if I go to instance management, as we can see, if we look at the life cycle, we have 2 EC2 instances in service and one of them is still terminating, which is good. And so if I refresh this, well, we can see that my load balancer is still working and we still get traffic to the 2 running EC2 instances that were created. So we can play a little bit with it, but you get the idea. And so what you could be doing at the end is to go to details and you could play around with the desired capacity. So you can set it to 1 or we can set it to 4 and see what happens automatically for your auto scaling group, your load balancer, and so on. And you have to imagine that in real life, you set an auto scaling policy to make sure that the desired capacity matches the actual load automatically for your auto scaling group. So that's it. I hope that was helpful for you and I will see you in the next lecture.